How do you see excellence? Number one, excellence is seen in knowledge. He had a spirit of excellence. How could you know? Because of his knowledge. Because when we talk about a spirit of excellence, we're not talking about something that moves in the atmosphere. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Spirit of excellence. No. Spirit of excellence. That's not what the Bible is talking about. How could we know he had a spirit of excellence? Through his knowledge. You can't have a spirit of excellence and be ignorant. If you have an excellent spirit, you're going to seek knowledge. You seek knowledge by inquiry, asking questions, reading books, observing life. And if you don't do any of these, you don't have knowledge. You have instinctive knowledge, but not acquired knowledge. Excellence is seen, number two, in understanding. Not just information, but the practical workings of information. That's understanding. In all you're getting, get understanding. Third, excellence is seen in solving problems. Daniel was a problem solver. So if you have an excellent spirit, you'll solve some problems around you. Problems are the raw material for success. If you exist in a problem-free world, you have nothing to work with. You need problems around you. That's why Zimbabwe has got problems. Because there is some excellent spirit in this place. Excellent people with an excellent spirit who have knowledge, who have understanding, and know how to solve problems. But you can't solve a problem you don't understand. If you and I are going to solve problems, we have to understand the problem. If you can't make head or tails out of the problem, how can you solve it? So you have to understand, and you understand by knowledge, by understanding. Then you solve problems. Like the inflationary problems in Zimbabwe. You can solve them. At least we tried to solve them a bit last week. Knocked 3 zeros out. Which is a positive step, but it doesn't solve all the problem. There's still a lot of complicated economic dynamics that are fueling inflation, because if you're not careful, you knock off 3 zeros. In the next 2 years, you add another 3 zeros. You see, so there are underlying factors that feed inflation. And you must understand, and that's why you can't be a citizen of this country and only participate in its problems without having an understanding of its problems. Because there are people who participate in the problems but have no understanding of the problems. What do I mean? It's like a sick person. A sick person is participating in sickness, participating in pain. But that does not mean he understands how to cure himself. He goes to a doctor. The doctor may not participate in the pain, but has knowledge and understanding of your pain and can solve things he's not involved in, problems he's not involved in. In other words, I can come from Ghana and provide solutions for you. I don't need to live here to understand your problems. You don't need to live in Ghana to understand my problems. I don't need to live in America to understand American problems. Neither do Americans have to live in Africa to understand African problems. As a matter of fact, when you are too close to the problems, you don't have clear understanding, because your pain clouds your understanding. So excellence is seen in knowledge, understanding, solving problems. And I like the other one. It says Daniel had the ability to solve enigmas. Enigma is explaining complexities. Some problems are one-dimensional problems. They're easy to solve. Some problems are multidimensional. They have so many different components. Because if you want to solve a problem of a nation, you have to understand the history of the people. So you have to read your history. Just because you are Zimbabwean doesn't mean you understand Zimbabwe. You must understand the factors that have brought the nation to where it is now. Its cultural heritage, its colonial heritage, the dynamics that feed into the thinking, the psyche of the people, the things that predispose the people to make some choices and not some choices. You see, I've observed, for example, African countries going through problems. They have an election, they change their president, they bring in another one, and they have the same problems. Because they are dealing with the same dynamics. And until you can find somebody who understands the enigmas, the complexities, and doesn't simplify. And by the way, that's one of the problems with politicians. They oversimplify problems. Because politicians have to speak to the masses. And you can't speak complexity to the masses. You have to break it down to slogans. So pretty soon, not only are they talking slogans, but they think slogans. And because they think slogans, they oversimplify the problems. And then when they are in power, they have no clue. Because they have simplified a problem that is more complex than the slogans they were putting out there. But Daniel could solve enigmas, complexities. Because he had knowledge, he had understanding, he had problem-solving skills, and he had the ability to work with tough issues and grapple with them and break them down in understandable ways. The spirit of excellence explains complexities. In other words, if I called any one of you here and I ask you a very simple question, I ask you, why is Zimbabwe going through this economic crisis? You should be able to explain it to me. And it shouldn't be childish talk. You are born again, you have the spirit of truth in you. You can't just tell me, well, things are hard, and the nation, things are tough, and, the devil is really oppressing our country. I know the devil is oppressing the country because at the end of the day, the devil is behind everything wicked and negative. But he manipulates human systems. And if you can take those systems out of his manipulation, he will not be able to manipulate them. But you have to understand what you are dealing with. So if I ask the average young man here, I say, you live in Zimbabwe. How long have you been in Zimbabwe? And you say, well, I've been here for 30 years. What's going on? Pastor, things are tough, man. Things are tough, man. Yes, everybody knows things are tough. But you have a spirit of excellence. So acquire some knowledge. Read your history. Understand your culture. Understand your people. Understand your colonialism. Understand your past. Understand what has brought you here. Then you can now start breaking it down and making this thing that perplexes politicians meet for the church. I believe Jesus is the answer. But what's the question? He is the answer, but we must bring to him the right questions.